Today I want to talk to you all about complaining. So the title of this message is Don't Stop Complaining. Now, there are times when complaining is okay. And there are times where God does not condone us complaining, where he does not want us to complain and murmur. And so we're going to talk about, in this video, I'm going to discuss the differences in when it's okay to complain, what type of complaints are okay to be made, when it's okay to use complaining, and when it is actually a sin, when it's something that God despises and frowns upon. So, for example, when I make videos on this channel, a lot of times I make videos talking about the injustice and the unfair things that have happened to me and my children, how people have used sorcery and witchcraft to destroy our lives. And usually when I do this, a lot of times people will see it as I'm complaining. But as you remember, in the Bible, Jesus himself often talked about the ways of the Pharisees. He talked about how they were looking down on people, how they were respecters of persons, how they were not holy, how they had an outwardly appearance of righteousness, but inwardly their hearts were wicked and evil. He often talked about the ways of the Pharisees and how not to be like them. He complained when he saw them turning the church into a money den where they were exchanging money inside of his church. He spoke out about these things. And so I looked at the word of complain, and it's to express grief or content or pain. It's an expression of grief, pain, or discontentment or dissatisfaction. And so there is a time where we are able to complain. For example, if you're speaking out and you're advocating against something that's unjust, if you have suffered a grievance or wrong that's been done to you that has caused you pain, or it's affecting other people, that is seen as a form of complaint that God is actually okay with. Because see, a lot of times when you don't speak out, the injustice persists and they actually become worse. The mistreatment continues to go on. It perpetuates. And so in order for grievances or mistreatments or injustice to stop, in order for there to be an end to it or to bring about change, people are supposed to use their voices to speak out and advocate against the injustice that are happening and occurring. Many times when we speak out, there are other people who are facing these same injustice, these same sorrows and wrongs, but they just don't have the courage to speak out. Or maybe they're afraid. Maybe they don't have the means to speak out. And so it takes someone who has been blessed with courage, someone who has the strength, who's gone through something, or someone who God has appointed and anointed for that time to speak out. And usually when that person speaks out, it creates an effect, a domino effect, where others will begin to speak out because now they're filled with the courage to now speak out against the wrongdoings that are occurring. Think about slavery. In the time of slavery, there were people who did not speak out and complain about the injustice that were happening, how the slaves were being mistreated, how they were done unfairly. There would never been any change brought forth. How would there have been any awareness if no one ever used their voice to speak out and to complain about the injustice that were being done? I've been seeing a lot of celebrities speaking out lately, a lot of people who have been speaking out. And there's one particular actress who have been speaking for a while, talking about the injustice of how she has not been being paid right compared to her counterparts. And usually these counterparts are of a different race. And she is speaking out a lot about this, of how she's not getting the money that she deserves for her craft, for her work, for her experience. She's a talented and well-accomplished, reputable actress. And she has been dealing with a grievance of not being paid adequately. And so she's speaking out about this. And so what this does is this spreads awareness. And so when other people see her speaking out, they're inspired to speak out themselves about their own injustice. And as you see, when people talk about the sexual abuse that's going on, many people have been able to speak out. When one person comes forward, when they're strong enough to speak out, it actually prompts other people to start speaking about the same things that's going on. Because see, there's no change that can be made. And a lot of times people will say, oh, you're whining when you speak out, you're complaining. And they do this because this is some type of psychological thing that is used to deter. It's a deterrent that they use so that they can continue to keep you in silence. They could continue to keep you in bondage and oppress you. It is a form of oppression when a person is not allowed to speak out about the injustice that are done wrong. We have freedom of speech. And when someone is being mistreated, they have the ability to speak out. If you don't speak out, you condone the mistreatment, you condone the abuse, and you allow others to suffer. Because many times, like I said, there are other people who are facing these same injustice, but they don't have the ability to speak out. They don't have the courage or the strength. And so people will try to make you feel guilty about speaking out. Say, oh, you're complaining. You're complaining. You're whining. They'll say you're whining, as if you're not supposed to speak out about an injustice that's being done to you. As if you're not supposed to speak out about pain and mistreatment and abuse or the oppression, when you're not being treated right, when you're not getting paid according to what it's worth, when you're being used as a slave, or you're being put in bondage, when you're being mistreated or bullied, where people are taking things from you and you have no rights, you cannot speak up, when you're being blamed and you're being mistreated unfairly. See, in order for us to bring about change, we have to complain. We have to speak out. There's nothing wrong with complaining when you do it to that degree, and when you back it up with some form of action, positive action that will induce and prompt change, that will advocate and bring forth justice. Now, there's a complaining that is not what God wants us to do. For example, you remember in the Bible, when God was helping the Israelites, he was freeing them from their oppressors. And they were walking in the wilderness, and God was performing miracles. Their situations were not sufficient. They were not ideal. But they were escaping the bondage that they were in. See, God was taking them to a place, a promised land. But the Israelites could not stop complaining, because every time there was something they did not like, something that they saw as unfavorable, a minor situation that was unfavorable, they would complain about and talk about how God had them in the wilderness, and they'd rather stay back in Egypt. They were in the wilderness, they're left to die, and they had no meat, and they had to eat this dry, light manna. They were complaining about stuff like that. That is trivial complaining. And this is what God frowns upon. When we complain about minor issues and we don't trust God, we don't have faith in God, when we complain about something that's minor, or like if, let's say if you're on the job and you walk into the job and you're complaining every day talking about the chairs. You don't like that the boss or the company won't change the chairs, or you don't like the certain policies that you feel they're not affecting you. They're just providing, it's just not ideal for you. It's not causing you any type of distress or pain. It's not causing you any type of sorrow. It's not oppressing anybody else. It's not putting people in bondage. It's not making people feel, it's not treating people unfairly. You just don't like it because it's just not ideal for you. You don't feel comfortable with it, or it goes against what you prefer. That is minor complaint. These are the types of complaints that are really not legitimate. It's just as if like you go outside and you see it raining one day and you say, this rain, I'm tired of this rain. But is the rain really affecting you? Is it just a minor inconvenience that you can live with? Is it oppressing others that this rain is happening, is it occurring? Now, if there was a drought and you see that people cannot get crops, the crops are not growing. They cannot have water. They cannot grow their crops. And you say, oh, I'm tired of this famine. There's a drought. We're complaining. We need to do something. Now, since it's affecting people, it's hurting people, that is a legitimate complaint. And so we have to learn how to determine, distinguish between what is seen as a complaint that is justifiable, or what is seen as a complaint that is more of a nuisance, that is something that we should not be talking about, is a complaint that seems as if it's frivolous or petty. And so this is where God wants us to be. There's nothing wrong with complaining, because again, complaining expresses a grief or pain or a sorrow. For example, if you know about the workers, have you ever saw workers who had to deal with unfair treatment on their jobs? Their jobs were putting them in predicaments that created them to be put in unsafe environments. They were getting hurt on the job, or they were not getting paid fairly, or they were being overloaded with work. It was a place where it caused a hazard to others. And so they spoke out, they protested, they complained, they brought their concerns forward, and they did things to bring forth change. They spoke out about it to prompt change for the better, for a positive way, to move change forward so things can change and go in a positive direction. And see, if they never spoke out about it, there would not be any change. And so, yes, this is legitimate complaints. These are legitimate complaints. And so it's okay for us to complain when we're complaining in the right context, when we're complaining about things that are affecting us, that are bringing forth distress, that are oppressing other people, that are keeping people in bondage, that are bringing forth sorrow, that are unjust, unfair treatment. It is okay to complain. And when those who try to tell you, oh, it's not okay, they're trying to make you seem like, oh, you're whining, you're complaining, you're weak. They want to make you seem like you're weak for complaining. No, you're not weak. You're actually opposite of that. Because it takes a lot of courage and strength for a person to speak out against an injustice, especially when others are not speaking out about it. And they're made to look like the problem. They're made to look difficult. They're made to be ostracized against. These are people who are targeted because they're speaking out. They have a voice. They're using their voice to induce change in a positive way. They're using their voice to advocate for others who cannot advocate for themselves. And so the enemy who wants to keep you oppressed because they don't want things to change, they want to get away with what they're doing, they want to hide it, they want to continue to keep mistreating you and not letting anybody know about it. They're going to make you think that, oh, you're complaining, you're whining, well, so what? Let them, you can continue to complain. You should not feel shame about complaining in the right context. You should not feel shame about advocating for others so you can bring about justice. So I'm telling you here because, see, if we didn't have anything to complain about, there would not be any complaints. I said that before. If people were not treating people unfairly and mistreating them and doing them unjustly and harassing others and doing wrong to others and getting away with it, there wouldn't be a reason to complain. So I'm here to let you know that God is okay with that type of complaining. He's okay with that type of complaining that brings about justice. He's okay with the type of complaining that will cause you to speak up and advocate for yourself or others who are being treated unjustly and unfairly, who are being oppressed, who are being put in bondage. So I'm here to let you know, don't stop complaining.